webinar.
Okay. First of all, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends and seniors. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the second of the webinar series with theme Research Trends in Taxation and Corporate Governance. My name is Aubrey Fiorentia, and today I will be your master of ceremony on this very special occasion. Also, it's an honor for me to have the opportunity to be in your presence this morning. First of all, I would like to welcome and thank Professor Dr. Mohd Rizal Palil and Professor Dr. Balkish Zakaria as our speaker today. Good morning, Mr. Rizal and Mrs. Balkish. Okay, then Mrs. Santi Novita as our moderator, which she is also our text lecturer at Airlangga University, and to all of the audience today. Before we get into the main event, I'm going to give a brief explanation about our rundown today. This webinar will be divided into three sections. The first one is the presentation by Professor Dr. Mohd Rizal Palil from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. The second one is the presentation by Professor Dr. Balkish Zakaria from the Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. And the last one is the Q&A session that will be led by our moderator. Now I'm going to read the rules for our webinar today. Maybe our crew can help with sharing screen. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so this is the rule for our webinar today. The first one, the webinar is being recorded and live streamed, so please stay mute until you call upon. Then don't forget to turn on your camera and use Zoom's virtual background that has been shared by our crew. And don't forget to rename your Zoom account in the format name_institution name. And the Q&A process will use slide view feature to ask questions in chat. So please visit that website that already been given by our crew. And the last one is enjoy the webinar. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will get into the main event of the second webinar series that will be led by our moderator. Please join me welcome Mrs. Santi Novita. Time is yours.
Thank you, Audrey. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Santi Novita as the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Department of Accountancy, Faculty of Economics and Business, Universitas Airlangga. Would like to welcome you all today in the second webinar series with topic Research Trend in Taxation and Corporate Governance. First of all, I'm very pleased to welcome to our distinguished speakers today, Ibu Dr. Balkish Zakaria from Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. Good morning. And Dr. Muhammad Rizal Palil from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. How are you, Dr. Rizal?
Alhamdulillah, fine, thank you.
Thank you. And also welcome the webinar audience. We have the practitioner, we have lecturers and students from Airlangga University and from other university and from other country. We have participants from South Africa, Ghana, and our neighborhood, Timor-Leste, Malaysia, Brunei, and Philippines. Wow, we are so excited to have you here. Welcome to FEB Universitas Airlangga. And thank you also for the committee who has been working hard to make this webinar come to life this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, before I read the curriculum vitae of our speakers, allow me to inform that the Department of Accountancy has arranged some webinar series and sort of similar event as a public lecture series, and this webinar is one of them. And the following event will be on the 18 October and 2 November this year. Okay, Bapak Ibu, ladies and gentlemen, through this event, we hope that we can increase wider perspective on these two research topics and have a knowledge and insight to increase the ability in conducting research, particularly and generally as the way to create higher, conducive academic climate. Now, allow me to read the curriculum vitae of our speakers. Maybe the committee can help me, please. Oh, yeah. The first speaker is Dr. Rizal Palil. He is an associate professor of Faculty of Economics and Management from Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia and earned his PhD from the University of Birmingham, UK, and now he is lecturing undergraduate and postgraduate in accounting and taxation at the School of Accounting, Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. And we can see he also published some articles, but I believe this is the most recent one, and the topic mostly relate to taxation. Yeah. And now we have Dr. Nur Balkish. Yeah, Dr. Nur Balkish Zakaria is associate professor at Universiti Teknologi Mara. She earned her PhD from Victoria University of Wellington, New Zealand. She has been active in international research activities, and she has published a number of articles with various topics, I think, in finance, right? Behavior, but here I believe the committee to provide the most current, and the topic mostly related to corporate governance. She also received several grants from both international and local organizations, and award from Marie Curie Risk Management Research in Europe on 2009 and 2010. Well, I think that's the introduction to the speaker. Now, we move on to the main session of the webinar. The presentation of our speakers about 80 minutes, and we will continue with Q&A about 30 minutes at the end of the session. Now I will pass the time and Zoom to Dr. Rizal Palil, who will have 40 minutes presentation and give you permission to remind you 5 minutes before the time is up. Dr. Rizal, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Ibu Santi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good morning. Yeah, first and foremost, I would like to thanks to the organizing committee, Universitas Airlangga, Surabaya, okay, for inviting me to share my knowledge with all the participants today. And I used to be in Surabaya, and I just saw the signboard, the direction to Unair, yeah, but never been there. Hopefully someday I would be there. And I'm a bit attracted with the icon of smart faculty, yeah, and the other one is sustainable faculty from the university. So I hope I can learn about the meaning of smart faculty soon, yeah, and then would be implemented in Malaysia, hopefully. Okay, I would share my slide presentation regarding today's topic. All right. Okay, so okay. All right. So today's sharing session from my part or my behalf is research trend in taxations. Yeah. So what I'm going to share with you today is about doing a research, particularly in taxations. What are the potential topics that you are going to research into, as well as the risk, yeah, of choosing a certain topic, yeah, And then how are you going to do a research in current situations, especially during the pandemic? And I believe that not only all researchers affected, in terms of doing their research, but I also believe that postgraduate students, in particular PhD students as well as master students, they are facing a very, very stiff competitions or very stiff challenges in order to pursue their research or in order to pursue their studies, right? So during these 40 minutes, so I hope I can achieve not more than 40 minutes sharing with you about the trends in tax research, Okay, so research in tax become more interesting and important, during the COVID-19 in particular, this is the best time to highlight that tax is an important instrument, in developing an economy, and also if you are doing a research in relations to COVID-19, we can also be able to prove that we can contribute during the crisis, and other discipline, for example, social science may be unable to contribute significantly compared to our discipline. I mean accounting, finance, corporate governance, economics, because the government are heavily relying on our input, relying on what we call as our expertise in advising the government. For example, what are the best method or what are the best incentive given to the nations or to the companies or to the taxpayers in order to suit with the current situations. So why tax expert or tax research need to have this kind of what we call as research or approach is this is the time where all tax experts in the world to highlight their expertise, and to be known, to be recognized, by all of us, by contributing ideas, contributing new policies, or contributing new knowledge, to the government in particular, because the government are not very clear, what to do, in order to face this pandemic, because I believe that even though it is a disaster, for us, since March 2020 until now, because the economic situation around the world are affected negatively, and we also facing new norms of having discussion like this through online, and of course big challenge also faced by pupils in schools, whereby they are having what we call as online learning and so forth. But from the positive perspective, when we are facing this kind of situations, I believe that it is a privilege for us, so that we can share these situations to our next generation in the next 20 or 30 years, hoping that our lifetime is longer than this, and especially from the journal, if you browse through, most of the journals are preparing their special issues, in line with the COVID-19 theme. So this is the thing that we have to grab this opportunity. I think the time that we face right now is once in our lifetime. So from government perspective, of course, they have no effective ideas, on how to accommodate these situations. And again, looking at the micro and macro perspective, in Malaysia, for example, and I believe also happen in other countries, we are suffering decrease in tax revenue. Why our tax revenue decrease? First, because of the less household consumptions. In Malaysia, ladies and gentlemen, if I wish to share with you that many of us are very prudent, in terms of spending, because they believe that the saving that they have right now, okay, need to be sustained longer than 2021, than 2022. Why? Because they are not able to predict when this COVID-19 will finish completely, okay, will entirely finish, okay. So people with more saving are very prudent in spending their money, okay, and therefore from macroeconomic theory, they will say that less household consumption will negatively affect the economy or the tax revenue, okay. And for business purposes, okay, the left hand side here is the increase in overhead, okay. For business enterprises, they are suffering increase in overhead because in accounting perspective, yeah, we have a fixed cost, okay, and also we have a variable cost, okay. So in relation to those, okay, so for them, they still have to pay their rental, they still have to pay their salaries, okay, for certain group of their workers, but there is no production, there is very little sales and very limited revenue for the companies, okay. And of course, due to the increase in overhead, okay, certain companies will sustain, yeah, within 2 or 3 months during the lockdown, but many companies eventually will be closed, okay. So imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if a company has approximately 50 workers, right, and the company is closed, so what are the multiple effects to the household, okay. For example, a guy, yeah, with 5 family members including himself, okay, right, so they are losing their capacity to purchase, okay, they are losing their capacity of purchasing power, and because of so many enterprises close, okay, and we believe that the multiple effect is almost 4 or 5 times, okay, from the individual affected, okay. And on the other hand, okay, with regards to the enterprises close, we will be facing a significant increase in poverty, okay. And of course, there are other more negative effects due to the COVID-19 situations, but these 4 are the main effect, okay. And all these 4 are tremendously affecting our government tax revenue, okay. So as a researcher, okay, the first thing that may arise in our mind was, does it really happen in Malaysia or in Indonesia, okay. If it does happen, what are the amount that the government will decrease in tax revenue, for example, or what are the percentage of decrement in the poverty in Malaysia, for example, okay. So this variable or these parameters in macroeconomics and macroeconomics perspective need to be researched further. All right, so that is the first thing, or what we call as the research trend right now. Okay, first and foremost is in relation to the COVID-19 issues or the effect of COVID-19 towards a certain country. Okay, and of course, we also looking at the corporate tax, for example. Okay, do we need to increase our corporate tax right now, or do we need to decrease the corporate tax right now? Okay, now in Malaysia we have 24% corporate tax. Okay, should government decrease the rate, for example, from 24 to 23? Yeah, or they want to increase from 24 to 25? Okay, so these are the things that a researcher can go into. Okay, what are the tax gap or what are the tax foregone? Okay, if the government decrease from 24% to 23%, okay, or increase from 24 to 25%, okay, are they stimulating the economy by changing the corporate tax rate? Yeah, or are they deterring, yeah, the growth of the economy, okay, by changing this corporate tax, for example? Okay. And secondly, ladies and gentlemen, we also looking at the individual tax. Okay, even though, for your information, yeah, in Malaysia, the collection of individual tax is about 30% to 40%, yeah, compared to 60% or 70% from corporate tax. But the number of taxpayers in Malaysia is approximately 10 million. Okay, approximately 10 millions. Okay, and in relation to my previous slide, yeah, if there are continuously companies close, okay, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and I believe that the number of individual taxpayer would be decreased significantly, okay, because they are what we call as losing their income or suffering lower income because of salary cut, and also any other issues, okay, done by the companies. Okay, so does this individual tax system still effective during this pandemic? Okay, this is also another area of research need to be researched into. Okay, and then is it the time or is it the best time for us to propose a purely Islamic tax system? Okay, in Malaysia, for example, Islamic tax system is an alternative platform. Okay, you are not being penalized if you are not paying the zakat. Okay, you are not being penalized if you are not paying the zakat in your correct amount. Okay, but you will be penalized if you are not paying your correct amount of tax in Malaysia. Okay, so do we want to highlight this Islamic tax system during the situations? Okay, so for researchers outside there, we need to grab this opportunity to highlight what are the best mechanism, yeah, in order to what we call as to retaliate from these particular situations. All right, and number 4, we also have indirect tax system called as value added tax. Yeah, and for your information, we used to have value added tax in Malaysia from 2015 to 2018. Okay, but starting from 2018, the VAT, or in Malaysia we call as GST, good and services tax, has been temporarily abolished. Okay, and I believe that is it the best time for Malaysia to what we call as to reintroduce this value added tax? Yeah, and then we're also looking at the tax relief. Okay, I believe that the government of Malaysia and Indonesia providing extra tax relief during the situations, and of course extension of the date of the filing also very helpful in terms of what we call as managing the cash flow, especially for the company. Okay, and you may also proceed to other fundamental issues. Yeah, for example, canon of taxation introduced by Adam Smith. Okay, even though it is more than 200 years, since 1776, yeah, since 1776, Adam Smith has been introduced these 4 main issues. Okay, briefly, I would say that a tax system in current situations or in previous situation must have these 4 elements. Okay, equity and fairness, efficiency, convenience, and certainty. Okay, so I'm not having much time to share with you what are all of these principles in detail. Okay, but we can read the book. Okay, how the meaning of equity, efficiency, convenience, and certainty. Okay, and then we move to the another dimension of doing a research. For example, is environment related issues. Okay, so you can also have environmental tax. Okay, and also you can have a green taxes, carbon taxes, petroleum taxes. Okay, so merely it is a new taxes. Yeah, a new tax could be implemented by any government in the world. Okay, the onus of having this environment related tax is primarily to what we call as to sustain the environment. Okay, to reduce the emissions. Okay, to reduce the logging activities and so forth. Okay, but secondarily, the objective of having this kind of tax is to generate income to the government. Okay, both come together. Okay, if this kind of tax implemented in any countries, we can have these 2 benefits. Yeah, for example, we can have our environment better, and second one, we can have our tax collection increase. Okay, but normally in having this kind of tax in developing countries is quite difficult. Okay, because comparing to developed countries, for example, in Europe, in Finland, in Norway, for example, they have implemented this kind of tax. Okay, or we can call it carbon tax, green tax, whatsoever tax. Yeah, but the concept is the same. Okay, the purpose is to sustain or to cure the environment. Yeah, so these are the things that postgraduate students or academic researchers can look into these issues. Yeah, environmental related tax or environmental related issues. And of course, among the most popular research in tax is what we call as behavioral dimensions. Yeah, so I'm also involved what we call as heavily in terms of studying the behavioral aspect of taxpayers. Yeah, for example, why taxpayers are willing to pay tax, why taxpayers unwilling to pay tax, why do we need voluntary compliant, why do we need forced compliant. Okay, there are some theories, for example, carrot and stick. Okay, in US, among the glamorous concept is carrot and stick. What should the government do? Either using the carrot approaches or using stick approaches, yeah, to increase the voluntary compliance. And of course, if you refer to Australian Tax Office, they have formed a framework of the behavior of taxpayer. Okay, the triangle behavior, the triangle behavior connecting between the level of compliance and the level of implementation and actions would be done or can be done by the government. Okay, we also can move to tax audit, for example, tax investigations, the level of tax knowledge, tax morale. Okay, so these are the things that parameters that can be researched in any researchers, yeah, so that they can have the output in terms of behavioral dimension. Okay, and I believe that we are not being able to 100% having compliance rate. Okay, and I also believe that we are not having 0% compliance rate. Okay, in any countries this won't be happen. Okay, but at least we can have a very reasonable compliance rate. For example, 90% or 95% of our populations, okay, for example, in Malaysia are having compliance, even though coming from voluntary aspect or forced by the government. Yeah, so these are the things in behavioral dimension that you want that you can go into, okay, in doing current trend or current issues in tax, for example. Yeah, and then we also proceed to statistical research. Okay, provided that you have a very good knowledge in econometrics, yeah, in what we call as in time series, in modeling. Okay, so you can go into this kind of research. For example, you can compare data, okay, tax collection before the crisis and after the crisis. Okay, you can do the comparison intra-country. Okay, so you can have what we call as longitudinal studies. Yeah, okay, you can compare your tax collections from for example, from year of 2000 until year of 2021. Okay, so you can have relationship between the economic situations, government policies towards your own country's tax collections. Okay, on the other hand, you can also proceed to inter-country tax collections. Yeah, but if you wish to have a research in comparing inter-countries, what I suggest to you is please choose countries that have a similar background. Okay, for example, you are choosing ASEAN countries, okay, which have similar political situations, which have similar demography of the income of the populations, yeah, and therefore you can compare apple to apple. Okay, but bear in your mind, yeah, if you are comparing between developing countries and developed countries, and therefore you have to be very careful in running the data. And of course, you need some control variable, and you must have a very strong assumption so that the result would not be biased, okay, due to the inconsistencies among the countries that you are comparing into. Yeah, so these are the things that you can research into, inter-countries studies. Okay, and a bit difficult but doable is if you are using intercontinental studies. Yeah, you are comparing between Asian tax collections, you are comparing between Asian and Europe, and any continent that you wish to. Okay, so these are the another angle of doing the statistical research. Yeah. And of course, if you are doing an academic research, you must, it is not a must actually, but you are highly encouraged to have a theory, yeah, or some theories that underpin your research. Okay, when I back to my PhD journey back into 2006, yeah, in my PhD thesis, I have no theory tested, yeah, but my research still can sustain or can stand on its own, and therefore you are not compulsory to have a theory during your research. Okay, but make sure, okay, for early researcher, for example, for postgraduate, master student, or PhD student, okay, can be considered as early researcher. I do suggest that you, it is better for you to have a theory, okay, at least a theory to underpin your study, okay. And of course, you have learned in your research methodology papers, inductive approaches, deductive approaches, and so forth, yeah. So you can have this kind of approaches in your research, okay. So the first thing, in behavioral study, normally we will use theory of planned behavior, okay. We have also many research using the equity theory, okay. Equilibrium theory and optimal tax theory are economic based theory, okay. And there is a theory, yeah, has been filmed by US, okay. If you once watch a film called A Beautiful Mind, yeah, A Beautiful Mind is a true story, based on true story. I think it is a story, how a professor, yeah, in Princeton University, I couldn't remember the name of the professor. Yes, Professor John Nash. Okay, Professor John Nash developed a theory called game theory. Okay, and he has received a Nobel Prize, and at the same time he suffering schizophrenia. Okay, during developing the game theory, and the game theory also applied in economic, also applied in war. Yeah. So if you have a chance, please watch a movie called Beautiful Mind. Okay. So you can learn how this professor, starting from his life as a PhD student, as a professor, okay, being challenged by his colleague and so forth. It is a good movie actually. Yeah. So you can share with your student this particular movie, A Beautiful Mind. Okay. So these are the theories that may be used in your study. So these are the thing of theory of planned behavior. I think I have another 5 to 10 minutes, so I will have to go quick. Okay. So this theory says that your behavior is driven by your intention. Okay. So your behavior is driven by your intention. Okay. And your behavior can be predicted based on your intention, and therefore this theory only examine your intention. Okay, they are not predict your behavior because they believe that intention will drive your behavior. Okay, for example, from tax perspective, your intention not to pay tax eventually will lead you not to pay tax. Okay, and this theory says that intentions, okay, are driven by three three variable here: attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. Okay. So the first thing, this theory says that attitude, okay, if you have this kind of attitude, then your intention will be there. Okay. And then subjective norm is your environment, your influence from your colleague, your influence from your family members. Okay. And perceived behavioral control are from the other perspective. Okay. So this theory can be used in behavioral study in text, for example, in text planning. Okay. It also used, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, in criminal aspect. For example, if you are in what we call a social science, you are investigating criminal, why a thief, okay, steal money. Okay. Why? Because they have intention to steal the money. Eventually, the behavior will become the stealing process. Okay, so these are the thing, or these are the theory that can be used if you are using a behavioral aspect. Okay, and equity theory. Okay, we can say that any tax introduced by the government, yeah, would be having the same effect to all group of taxpayers. Okay, so for example, if I have income of $5,000 a month, I have to pay $500, and the other colleague with having the same income also have to pay this particular tax amount. Okay, so this is the approach of equity theory. Okay, and the equilibrium theory, game theory, also more mathematical. So you can refer to any literature in relation to this kind of theory. Okay, optimal tax theory also related to mathematical or econometrical issues. Okay. Okay, another area of concern, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, to go into in tax studies right now is estimating tax foregone or estimating tax gap. Yeah, for example, as we know that during the COVID-19 or not during the COVID-19, government are continuously providing tax incentive from time to time. Okay, so we have to have a research, yeah, for each incentive given by the government, how much the tax foregone suffered by the government. Yeah, and you can go further. For example, for every incentive given by the government, how much, for example, increase in tax collections. Okay, the other way around. Okay, you can have another impact, the amount of tax foregone, or another way is the amount of increase in tax collected because of certain incentive given by the government. Okay, and of course during the COVID-19, not only in Malaysia, okay, in Indonesia also they have what we call as delaying the tax payment or delaying the tax collection. For example, 3 months delay. Yes, it is good for the companies. Yes, it is good for the individual taxpayers. But from the government perspective, remember, ladies and gentlemen, they have to delay their tax collection. And if the government have adequate fund to roll out the money while waiting the collection of 3 months, then that one should be okay. But for certain government who has no sufficient roll out amount of money, they will be a bit suffer when delaying tax collection implemented because of this particular pandemic. Okay. So now we have to be very careful in doing any research. Okay. I classify research into two main angles. For example, research for PhD or master, or we can call research for a degree. Another one is research for fun. Okay. So it doesn't mean really for fun. Okay. But okay, let me explain the first one. If you are doing or willing to have a research for PhD and master, make sure your research is achievable within the time frame. Okay, and make sure your data collection is realistic. The population of the data is achievable. The sample is easy to determine and easy to collect, and therefore within 3 years, for example, for PhD, or 4 years, you can get your degree. Okay, all right. So make sure, determine on your own that you just doing a research to get a degree, and therefore please don't aim too high. You are not going to rock the world when you are doing this kind of research. Okay, I came across a student who is doing a PhD under my supervisions. During my first week of meeting him, he says that, okay, doctor, I wish to have this research, and I wish to have I wish to have interviews of 50 CEO of public listed companies. Okay, so I wonder. So I asked the student, okay, are you sure you can have 50 CEO from public listed companies? Okay. Yes, your research would be very good in terms of your finding, but is it achievable within your time frame? So I asked him to mellow down the expectations just to have an accountant in any companies as a respondent. Okay, so the danger is there. Yes, you can have a very good research, a very good data collection, but you may finish your PhD 6 or 7 years. Okay, so please don't endanger your academic research for PhD and master. All right. On the other hand, when we are going to research for fun, meaning that at my stage, I have got my PhD. Okay, I have got my master. So now I just want to do a research, okay, which is aiming a bit higher, probably having a very difficult data collections, but at least when we fail to obtain the data, we are not considered fail to get our degree. Okay, so normally when you are at the stage of research for fun, for example, you can do whatever you do. Okay, and there is normally no time frame to finish, and there is no degree award for this particular research. That's why I classify these two become why matter. Okay, normally a PhD researcher, they are trying to go into research for fun. For example, they are going to have a very big research, which definitely cannot finish between 3 to 4 years, right? So as a conclusions, yeah, okay, so if you are willing to do a research in tax, okay, you can have you can have various approaches, for example, economic approaches, yeah, behavioral studies, okay, you can have also looking at the effective tax rates, okay, Islamic perspective, or you can have your own religion perspective, yeah, okay, green taxes, okay, and of course, okay, last but not least, COVID-19 effect on tax. Okay, so these are the things that you can go research into, and bear in your mind, you must able to classify your research for fun or research for a degree. Yeah, and that's finished my presentation today. Thank you very much for your time and your attentions, and I pass this microphone to Ibu Santi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rizal Palil. Very interesting. Yeah, and now let's move on to Dr. Balkish Zakaria for 40 minutes presentation, and give me permission to remind you 5 minutes before the time is up. Please welcome Dr. Balkish. The time is yours.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, everyone. Hi. So, I'm going to use this time allocated by Airlangga University. So first of all, thank you so much, Airlangga University, for this such an opportunity to let us share some token of knowledge, some piece of writing from us to all the audience. So again, thank you, Airlangga University. So the topic that I would like to share with all audience today would be the effect of board monitoring on operating cash flow manipulation among Malaysian firms. So when we talk about manipulations of operating cash flow, it also represents the earnings management. I'm sure that earnings management sounds cliche to everyone. However, the operating cash flow manipulation is the real earnings manipulation. sorry, is the real, yeah, the real EM we says, because we have the accrual one. So this is the real one, yeah. So for those who are keen to do earnings management studies, earnings manipulation, please, you can always come to us. So I'm from Accounting Research Institute of Universiti Teknologi Malaysia. So at the end of these slides, I'll show you my contact number and my email as well. So I'm here, Balkish Zakaria. So let us move to the second slides. So this is the paper that I'm referring about for the whole discussions throughout my turn here. So this is the paper which appeared on the Journal of Legal Ethics and Regulatory Issues. We have published this, and we just published this actually. And this paper was written by myself, the supervisors to Nurul Azlin. So Nurul Azlin is my PhD students, and Alhamdulillah, as what Dr. Rizal has shared just now, the intention of doing this research last 3-4 years was for Nurul Azlin to finish her PhD. So after she got her PhD, now it's the time for us to explore other research topics, and it's like a driving license. You got the driving license, so you may drive any car. So this is the one. So can we proceed to the next slide? Because I didn't control the slides, yeah. So as the introduction of this topic, I would like to highlight about how significant or how important the board of directors. They play an essential internal control mechanism, because they are the one who control or who monitor the management against any manipulating figures. So this is being posited by the agency theories, because agency theories explain the relationship between board of directors monitoring upon any mismanagement activities that may be carried out by the management. So the nexus between managers and board of directors, between shareholders and managers, are being discussed in thorough in agency theory by Jensen and Maclean 1974. You may read that. That is a very seminal theory. So get back to the introduction. The appointing directors should possess the right credibility, independence, and they should obtain appropriate qualification, as that is the precedence to maintain a high financial reporting quality. They are the one that monitor, so they should obtain the good characteristics among them first. Okay, so in Malaysia, we have Malaysian Code of Conduct on Corporate Governance. It's called MCCG, Malaysian Codes of Corporate Governance. We have that way back in the first earlier version in 2000, and then it will revised 2007, and then we have 2012, and the latest one 2017, as discussed in this paper. So there are difference between MCCG, the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance, 2012 and 2017. So for 2017, I'm reflecting to this context of this paper. 2017 MCCG highlight the emphasis on gender composition and board tenure. That's very interesting for me to discuss after this. So in 2000, okay, may I just highlight some of the difference between MCCG 2012 and MCCG 2017, though it's not going to be in any of the slides. So in prior MCCG 2012, when we talk about the board independence, MCCG 2012 requires that the chairman should be independent enough. They should not be an independent director. And the board of directors should consist majority of independent directors. Therefore, it was not compulsory for Malaysian listed company to ensure that there is a majority of independent directors on their board based on Securities Commission 2012. However, in MCCG, Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance 2017, they have recommended that at least half of the board must consist of independent directors, and large companies would normally refer to top 100, top 100 positioned of based on Bursa Malaysia listed companies performance, as specified by the code, there must be a majority of independent directors within the board, again based on Securities Commission 2017. Now, move on to the next emphasize, which is the board tenure. So for the board tenure, 2012, MCCG 2012 discouraged an independent director from serving more than 9 years on the board, which is also congruent to MCCG 2017. However, MCCG 2017 have tightened the rules to which retention of an independent director for more than 9 years will require shareholders to approve during their AGM, their annual general meeting, and the retention of this independent director for more than 12 years will also require shareholders approval during the AGM through a two-tier voting process, in which the first tier requires voting by large shareholders, while tier 2 will require voting by other shareholders. So, in addition to that, large companies, the top 100 especially, are discouraged. In short, they are discouraged from maintaining an independent director for more than 12 years. Why is it important to ensure that the board of directors does not be there on the board list so long? Because this is again to emphasize a good high financial reporting quality. If you can move on. Can we move on the slide, please? Yes, sir. Okay. So this is some of the literature review and how the hypothesis of the study is being highlighted, because we believe that internal corporate governance, the directors significantly improve the financial disclosure and the independence, the integrity, the competency. When we talk about the competencies of the directors, it refers to the qualification that they have, how long they have, and also their experience, how skillful they are. And also this will meet to the better monitoring over any activities of earnings manipulation. Thus, board effectiveness is believed to reduce the real earnings management activities. MCCG 2017 requires all listed companies to retain directors with the right skillful knowledge and experience. So the hypothesis of the studies is firms with better board monitoring will definitely have a low earnings manipulations. Move on, please. Yeah, so on top of this, I would also like to say that this paper also talked about the board gender composition. So why is that board gender composition being highlighted by MCCG 2017? Because we believe that the female, this is not feminist story or whatever, but well, we believe that when females sit on board, they are better, if not equal, in efficient monitoring than their female counterparts. Furthermore, female directors are proven to be more effective in constraining earnings management activities. We are not that daring enough, to exercise this. Well, not, please don't look at this as a controversial statement or what, but this is again based on literature's finding. So the presence of female directors has a negative effects on earnings management. So based on Malaysian statistic itself, only 5% of corporate crimes implicated by female directors, only 5%. So this study is being brought by Omar, Said, and Johari in 2016. It's been published. So this provides evidence that female directors can be characterized by their reluctance to manipulate earnings, and they play a better role in monitoring and have a high professional skepticism than the male counterparts when they sit on the same boards. All right. Of course, however, there are some contradictory findings on the research about female and male directors on board regarding the financial reporting qualities. All right, so the slides here have brought us to the research methodology segment. So here the sample selection firms, because these studies was run in 2013. Why 2013? Because it was done quite some years ago, and we have to depart from the general elections of the 14th general election, which was in 2012. So the data has to get to be collected and picked up from 2013. So we departed from there. So the population of listed firms were 80 and 4 during that time. So we minus with BAFIA. BAFIA is the Banking Institutional Act. So they have different act as compared to non-banking companies. So we got to minus them from the sample firms. So 54 out of these 804 has to be delisted from the sample firms. And also some firms are there with insufficient data. So many, quite a number of them, 253, we have to also exclude these firms. And some firms with extreme outliers has to be moved out as well. So it brings us to a final sample of 492 sample firms, and the observation of the study period take 5 years from 2013 until 2017. So the final firm year observation for this study were 2460. So we used the static panel analysis with controlling the fixed effect according to the Horstman test results. Yeah, so we follow very close to Roy Chowdhury real EM, earnings management model. So this is the formula. Yeah, sorry. So that is the cash flow operation of the current year. The normal levels of operating cash flow is being determined first. Then we explain the model by looking at the cross-sectional for the estimating normal levels of cash flow operation for every industries and years as being observed, yeah, from the companies. Because these firms are the sample firms, they are considered involving in operating cash flow when they give excessive sales discount, or they are not so lenient in their credit sales to customers. So based on Roy Chowdhury, these are the firms that we are skepticism about, where they could happen the manipulation of operating cash flow. So this is where the real earnings manipulation model exist according to Roy Chowdhury 2006. Okay, so next slide, please. So these are the measurement procedures. You may read that. We may spend some time in looking at each measurement procedures. So ABCFO is the abnormal operating cash flow. Yeah, that is according to Roy Chowdhury. So we can see the whole formula in the full papers. Yeah. So we have some independent variables here. So we have board size, denoted F1 if board size is between 8 to 14, 0 if board size less than 8 members or more than 14. So board independent is as well denoted as 0 if it less than 50% in the boardroom, or else 1 if they are between 50 to 75, or denoted as 2 if they are more than 75. Board independent exists in the boardroom. So these are all the dichotomous variable. While board expertise represent the professional qualification that the board acquired, or having 3 years practice as accounting, auditing, or being in the finance or taxation field. Or else if they don't obtain that, we give them 0. All right. So for board meeting, we denote as 0 if they meet less than 4, 1 if they meet between 4 to 8, and 2 if the meeting is held between 8 and above. For board gender, we have female and male. Foreign director, if any directors resides outside Malaysia, and firm size, liquidity, profitability, and leverage are the control variables. Yeah. So can we move on? All right. These are the findings of the results. This is the, like other papers, quantitative papers will begin with the descriptive analysis first. So the descriptive analysis findings of this paper begins with showing the minimum, maximum, the average here, and the standard deviation of each variable. So for the abnormal operating cash flow up to the firm's leverage, the standard deviation is considered normal, with only 0 until the maximum of 2.88 for the firm liquidity. So we can just say that the data, each of the variable is quite normal because the standard deviation is lies in the normal range. So can we move on to the inferential results? So this is the inferential results where the board of directors and abnormal operating cash flow shows a significant results of BDI. Yeah, I forgot to mention about the BDI. BDI is actually one of the independent variable. This is actually the board of director index. Yeah, so board of directors index in this study was conceived where we investigate the cumulative effect of diversification of board in the boardroom. So where did we got this? So we follow Bat and Bacharaya in 2017, where the board of directors index was constructed based on 6 variables. They are the board size, board independence, board meeting, gender diversification, foreign directors, and board expertise. As I mentioned just now, each of them will be denoted according to their dichotomous variables. So each of these variables, some were added and then divided by the total board score of each parameters. That's how we index them. All right, so that is where we can see from table 2's result here, the board of directors index is significant to the abnormal operating cash flow in a negative directions. Yeah, it means that high operating cash flow or high earnings management, low board directors index, or the other way around, high quality of board directors index will give a low earnings management according and proxy by the manipulation of abnormal operating cash flow. So that is what we expected in the hypothesis. Okay, move on to the next results, please. Okay, this is the table 3, where we see the board of directors attributes and abnormal operating cash flow. And here we did not use the index, but we test each of the characteristic of the board one by one. So we open up the board directors index and we found here that the board size is positive to the abnormal operating cash flow. It is significant. It means that the larger the board size, the higher the activities of earnings management according to abnormal operating cash flow. And the board independence is negative. It means that the better or the higher board independence, the lower the earnings management activities among the selected sample firms here. And also the last significant result we got from the board expertise. So it means that the skillful the directors, the better qualification that they gain, they are able to monitor the earnings management, and the results, besides giving a significant result, it shows a negative sign. So it's important to tell that the higher or the better expertise lent by the board of directors, the better of their monitoring skill reflected from this, and they lower the earnings management practices from the abnormal operating cash flow manipulation exists among the listed firms here because they are significant and while showing a negative result. So the adjusted R squared is 19. So for those who are interested to do earnings management studies, this is normal. Earnings management studies, adjusted R squared, that is not high. Yeah. Sometimes you can see that in top journals, they only 5, 6%, 7% of the adjusted R squared. So when we talk about adjusted R squared, do not generalize each topics equal. Some topics normally have a low range of adjusted R squared, but yet they are reflecting the real scenario of the case or the observations, I have to say. Can we go to the next slides, please? All right, so this is the discussion and conclusion. I have discussed the results earlier in the table. However, you can just read here where negative and significant relationship between board index and the earnings management align with prior studies that board of directors can improve their financial disclosure, reduce the earnings management, and limit the earnings management. In short, they lend a good monitoring skills. Whenever the board size and board expertise have a positive and significant relationship on the revenue manipulation, inverted U-shape effect on board size. So this is the issue that being highlighted by Saona 2020, where we have a U-shape effect on the board size and low number of board expertise among Malaysian firms. Board independent has negative and significant relationships on the normal cash flow just now, the revenue manipulation. Yeah. So the limitation of this study, it does not consider the variation within industry effect that has been proposed by Srivatava 2019. So that is the departure of avenue for next researchers. You can start with that. But we have controlled the fixed effect under the Horstman test proposed. Yeah. So again, for future studies, you can consider other board attributes such as board tenure, because we have mentioned about board tenure, but however, this studies data was departed way back in 2013 after our 14th elections. So the board tenure issue has just appeared after 2017, so it is not being captured in these studies. But for those who, I mean, wherever you are in Kenya, in other part of Asia, in wherever, board tenure is a very interesting topic to be studied about and to look on any financial performance, or in this case is the misconduct, I have to say, the mismanagement of financial reporting quality. So please, I welcome anyone who like to do PhD with us. So please welcome, because this is a quantitative studies. We use secondary data. We play around with some softwares like Stata or eViews. But if you use SPSS, it may not enough. So you have to combine with Status. So yeah, for those who are interested to do studies on financial reporting quality and corporate governance, please, I'm happy to be with you. So can we move on to the next slides? Yeah, that's it. So be there. That is my email, norbalkish@uitm.edu.my. And that is my number, +6014-633-2362. If any further discussion or any opportunity that we would like to have in future. So you may have that. And what else should I mention here? Of course, there's a lot of issues in corporate governance in Malaysia and other Asian countries and other emerging countries, I'm sure, but I would like to reserve that during Q&A session, so we can discuss and we can know more about that in depth, in deeper. So I think it's all about that, about the discussion on our paper. Can I pass it back to our Santi?
Thank you, Dr. Norbalkish. Yeah, very fantastic. Very well, ladies and gentlemen. Now we come to have 30 minutes question and answer session. I've got some question from the participant. I will go first to Dr. Rizal Palil. Yeah. Sometimes when we conduct taxation research, such an interesting topic from you is estimating tax foregone. We are facing data constraint in doing this. How can you share your experience facing this problem, Dr. Rizal?
Okay, thank you, Ibu Santi, for the question. Okay. For our informations, yeah, in doing tax foregone is quite difficult actually, yeah, because we have to have so many assumptions so that we can go to estimating the tax foregone. Yeah, for example, if in Malaysia we have a new tax incentive given to, for example, international company who operate their businesses in Malaysia, for example, they have what we call as pioneer status for 5 years. And under this pioneer status, they are enjoying 5 years tax exemptions up to 70% from their statutory income. Yeah. So if you are willing to have this particular tax foregone, okay, the first approach would be the best if the students or the researcher able to have the sufficient data. Okay, for example, data from the companies provided or enjoying the tax incentive, and then what are the real tax calculations prior to the incentive and post incentive. Yeah, so these are the method in doing the or estimating the tax foregone. Yeah, so I think that would answer the questions, Ibu Santi. Thank you very much.
Yeah, probably we can also find the data with the research collaboration, right, Dr. Rizal?
Yes, of course, indeed.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. We have also a question from our student. What is your opinion related to the contribution of tax research here to the government policy so far, Dr. Rizal?
Okay, from my personal experience, yeah, I have been involved research relating to the what we call as good and services tax, or GST, or in Indonesia we call it as value added tax. Yeah. So my concern at that time was, are we all ready, yeah, to be taxed nationally? Because before we have GST, tax is imposed to certain group of people who have what we call as sufficient income. Yeah, there is a threshold need to be taxed at that time. However, when GST implemented in 1st April 2015, there are a huge number of what we call as afraid, threatening, yeah, from the nations, so that the tax also will be collected from the poor group of the people in Malaysia. And therefore, I have ad in many TV station and radio telling them that actually GST is not like that. Okay, GST is a thing that tax should be paid by all of us and will be returned to all of us in benefit in kind from the government. So that is what we call as my contribution to the government. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe you can predict how many percent contribution or implication, yeah, of the research to the policy. Maybe you can predict up to
Yeah,
date.
indirectly, if we can say that indirect percentage, we can measure from our publication, citation, and so forth. Yeah. So indirectly, we can say that 5% or 10% would be there. But directly, as I said earlier, either your finding of our research can be implemented by the government. I think lower than that. Yeah, maybe less than 5%, perhaps.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Risa. We have another question. from the students about tax and zakat. Please give me the example of the research about that, which is inspiring us to do this topic.
Okay, thank you for the questions. Yeah, I think the treatment of zakat and tax in different countries are differ. Yeah, I provide an example for Malaysia. Okay, in Malaysia, if you have paid the zakat, then automatically your zakat payment will be deducted from your tax liability. Yeah, for example, if your tax liability in a year is 10,000 and you have paid the zakat 10,000, and therefore you don't have to pay any tax anymore. Okay, yeah, that is from individual perspective. Okay, so in this regard, I would say that the government should from economic perspective, it is no good for the government. Why? Because zakat payment will go to what we call as religious council, state, not go to the government. Okay, if you pay 10,000 to the zakat institutions, then this 10,000 will be tax foregone for the government. Yeah. So it is in principle, it is no good for the government because they are not able to collect the tax because of the taxpayer choose to pay zakat rather than the tax. Okay. But this situation, however, the zakat institution in Malaysia can play a role in eradicating the poor in Malaysia from the zakat collections. So in a way, the poor in Malaysia has been catered by these zakat institutions. And therefore, the government would be catering the higher level of lower income earner. Okay, I'm not sure how the zakat works in Indonesia. Does it work like Malaysia? I mean, if you have paid the zakat, therefore you can have a full rebate.
Reduction.
Or reduction. Yes. Okay. So that will be good. Okay. So from area of research perspective, I would suggest normally we can have a research regarding the behavior. Why do Muslim people in Malaysia choose to pay zakat more rather than pay tax? Okay, so one of my finding was they choose to pay zakat more rather than to pay tax because they have issues in trust to the government, because they are not really trust the government. For example, if I pay tax to the government may not distribute to the correct group of poor people, for example. Yeah, so that is from my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, another question, Dr. Rizal, from Liana.
Yes.
Can you comment about tax governance importance for companies, especially large business?
Is it tax governance?
Tax governance.
From large companies?
Yeah, importance of tax governance for large companies or large business.
Okay. I do believe that the meaning of tax governance is related to tax compliance. Yeah. How do the big companies govern their tax matters? Okay. So because when we say about compliance, we have 4 dimensions of compliance. The first one was registered. The second was declaring the correct income. The third one was claiming the correct deduction. And the fourth one would be paying the correct amount within the stipulated time. Okay, so from company's perspective, they have to follow this 4. Okay, unable to follow any one of those would be penalized by the Malaysian government. Yeah, so because the penalty is 45%, yeah, from the tax liability is very high. Okay, it's 45% for the first offense. The second offense will be more than that. Okay, so in order to have a good tax governance, okay, I would suggest that the big companies have to appoint a very good tax consultant or their internal tax expert from the company. Okay, even though they have to pay slightly higher salary for having this kind of people, this kind of expert people internally from the company, or they may have external tax consultant, but having good tax governance may reduce their tax penalties in the future in the long run. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Risa. One more question for you. What are the factors that to be considered in doing tax research by comparing country or continental? What is the factor that have to be considered?
Okay, the first and foremost for research for a degree, I mean, because I have classified research into two, right? Research for fun, research for a degree. Yeah, if you have, if you wish to have a research for a degree, make sure you have access to the data. Okay, if you don't have access to the data, please stop doing this research. Okay, and remember, I came across a data sold by a consulting firm, and the cost of the data is 4,000 US dollars. Okay, so I have to purchase the data 4,000 US dollars in order to accommodate my research. Okay, and luckily, because of my research is funded by my research grant, and therefore I am able to purchase 4,000 US dollars. Okay, unfortunately, before you purchase, we do not know is it the correct data that we want. Okay, so that is the risk behind that. Okay, so if you have paid $4,000, suddenly they email to us the data, and suddenly we are not being able to use the data, so your $4,000 are gone.
Gone.
Okay? Right? So first and foremost, before you have to decide whether you want to have a intercontinental or inter-countries, make sure you have the access to the data. Yeah, so this is the main conditions.
Okay, thank you. Related to the broad scope of the tax research, it is the question that sometimes students are being asked whether the research is accounting research or management research when it comes to the topic of taxation. Maybe you have experience with that.
Okay, it depends on a school of thought. Yeah, if you are using UK school of thought, taxation fall under accounting. Yeah, if you have an Australian school of thought, taxations are under school of law. Yeah, they are looking at law more than the accounting perspective. For Malaysian environment, I believe Dr. Balkish will agree with me. So we are fall under the accounting more rather than under the law. Yeah, so it is more on accounting rather than the management, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
It's nice to jive between we talk about tax with zakat, yeah, Islamic accounting.
Yes.
And when we talk about law, you may talk about tax avoidance, tax.
Yes.
So there's a lot of angles you may look at. Taxation is very interesting nowadays.
Yes, another point of view is if you wish to have a supervisor supervising you in PhD in Australia, the supervisor might be having law background. Yeah, so they are expecting from law perspective rather than accounting perspective. So it is quite danger for Indonesian students or Malaysian students who pursue their PhD in Australia. Make sure the background of the supervisors are coming from accounting at least. Okay. Yeah. So this is why this is the early research I have done before I decided where should further my study, either in Australia or in UK, because I also received offer letter from Australian universities to do my PhD. It was in 2006. At the same time, I received the offer from the UK, okay, and New Zealand as well.
Yeah, you're right, Dr. Rizal.
Yeah.
In New Zealand as well, the same like Australia.
Yeah, so
taxation, you fall under the School of Law.
Yes, okay. So that's why I attended conferences internationally, so I can see that tax expert from Australia, New Zealand, okay, they are coming from law background. Also goes to US and Canada. So the tax expert coming from law background. Okay, so we will receiving different approaches of presentation. They are looking at the act, the section this, and so forth. So while our research more on behavioral studies, more on accounting perspective. Yeah. So I think this is a very important input lah for students who wish to pursue their PhD, S3 or S2 outside there. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Interesting, Dr. Rizal. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Balkish Zakaria.
Yeah.
To what direction we can extend our understanding beyond economic and financial perspective in doing research on corporate governance, because some of research is more the scope is governance and performance, and this is related to financial and economic. How can we? What is the direction in the future?
Very nice question, Santi. Yeah, because I'm currently supervising Indonesian students from Bandung, IBS, International Banking of Studies, IBS, Jakarta, I think. Yeah, so we are looking on taxation too, but we are looking on governance and financial factors on tax avoidance. So what I'm trying to say in trying to answer you is, we can bring corporate governance monitoring to some other aspect, not only on financial reporting as what I have just discussed on my paper, but also, let's say, corporate governance in monitoring or control the activities of tax avoidance. That would be nice. So you are, blending the corporate governance topic with taxation. Yeah, one aspect. Of course, it's very cliche. Everywhere we talk about corporate governance and performance. But somehow or other, though it sounds cliche, when we talk about performance, we can always inject some new paradigm. For example, among the manufacturing companies. So we can look on how green bashing sentiment being used in coping with the environmental issues, pollution issues, also how well does corporate governance through the board, through audit quality, helps to cope with the activities of environmental or pollution, for example. So in that sense, corporate governance does not always measuring the corporate performance. Okay, we can always bring the topic of corporate governance as the monitoring side or evaluation side on any aspect of business or corporate business, or either, yeah, of course it happened in listed companies, because in SMEs, in NPOs, we don't talk about corporate governance. Yeah, that is what about enterprise governance. So trying to answer you just now, there's a lot of other perspective that we can blend, we can marry the corporate governance issues, not only in financial reporting, not only in corporate governance, but we can offer corporate governance monitoring skills in actually whatever dependent variable that may suit. So think beyond that. We may always think beyond that and look back at the prior studies. And nowadays, the issues of researcher is we tend to multidiscipline. Yeah, multidiscipline. We can also look on the corporate governance and the intellectual property, or also data mining. Yeah, data mining is more on computer science people. So they would say, if the board is this kind of big, the expertise are here, the independent size are here. So what's going to happen next to the performance or to some other issues of the company? So that is data mining, right? So it's very nice to play around with corporate governance figures today. Blend them.
All right. Second question, Dr. Balkish. Why in some research of corporate governance mention that organization life cycle is important factor in doing this research recently?
Okay, the question is, why is that the
organizational life cycle?
The organization life cycle. So I would regard that question as how long the company is going to be going concern, yeah, in the business. Because if the business is not going to be prolonged. In business, for example, in Malaysia, you become delisted from the Malaysian Bursa Malaysia, sorry. So don't talk about corporate governance, because in that sense, survival is more important. We believe that when agency theory being introduced, it comes with agency costs. So when we talk about board, we talk about audit quality, we talk about risk management quality, we talk about remuneration quality. These are all the corporate governance tools, yeah? So all of this comes with costs, definitely. We have to pay remuneration to these people. And the CEO, we pay high remuneration and salary or wage, whatever you call it. But somehow, this agency cost is to offset any is to look that is the monitoring cost, yeah, being mentioned in the agency cost. So when we talk about the life cycle of any conglomerates, of any company, the survival is more important. So if we set the corporate governance, or any company, for example, in Malaysia, they have to bind, they have to follow, they have to adhere exactly what Bursa Malaysia and Securities Malaysia has highlighted. We must obey that. But again, the survival of that company, the going concern, is far more important. What happened if the red flag is being issued by the auditor? It means that the going concern is at stake. Maybe in next year, they are no longer operating. So don't talk about corporate governance in that sense, yeah. But somehow, the vice versa could happen. That's why in corporate governance studies, we have this, what we call, in technical terms, we call it as, I forgot that, where we have to do the 2-stage and the 3-stage SLS. Because which one? Either the corporate governance first or the performance first. If the board, let's say board, is not skillful enough, they can't predict the collapse of the company. That's it, corporate governance comes first. But again, on the other side, corporate governance comes with cost. If it's too much costly, the survival or the operation, the length of the operation, the performance of the company would also be jeopardized, because we have to pay them high, right? So they are actually reciprocate one into another. One, it depends into another. That's why when we do research in corporate governance, we talk about comparing corporate governance, or we regress them upon performance. We have to do 2 SLS and 3 SLS. That is the cause. That is the endogeneity. The endogeneity effect comes. Okay. I hope that I answer that in the context of your questions. Yeah. I'm too much bringing it to the technical parts. Sorry.
Okay, it's just like egg and chicken. Which one is the first?
Correct. Egg and chicken, we can come first.
Okay. Another question is from the student. Is also talking about the contribution of this corporate governance research on the assisting the government to determine the new policy.
Yes, correct. Because the corporate governance must work together with government. And in fact, that's why in Malaysia, we have MCCG, the Malaysian Codes of Corporate Governance. I remember when I being interviewed as become one of the director in MCCG, but yeah, I wasn't qualified yet for that position. So we have to work very close with the government, and we have to, that's why we need these studies among Malaysian listed firms. We need the findings every year. We need the finding time to time. So corporate governance, even though it sounds cliche, even though we say that it is usual suspect, but we need that time to time. Why? Because MCCG keep evolve from one year to another. We must always check. Of course, there's a check and balance between the governments and their agencies towards this listed company. Why? Because listed companies are public monies. They are public firms. People rely on government. People rely on the auditors. They believe on these agencies. They believe on the skillfuls of auditors. So they put their money, they invest there, hoping that they will get a positive return at the end. So corporate governance must be there to ensure that this public money is not going to be wasted just simply by any mismanagement or misconduct activities of corruption of or any other things. So to answer that, yes, government needs corporate governance experts, and corporate governance have experts or researchers or bodies or agencies must always fulfill the aspiration of the government. For example, in a very simple way is to fight with corruption. Yeah. So the behavioral of corporate governance aspect is important there, not only to look at the performance, not only to look at the what are the some achievement, but just enough to look on how these firms safeguard the public money. That's more important. We need a good corporate governance. That's why issues of corporate governance becomes unresolved time to time. We must always comes. Sometimes it's just a tick and check, right? You know, tick the box if you have complied to this, whatever being asked by Bursa Malaysia. Yes, we have more than half of the board are independent. We have good size of board. We have this, we have here, there's no duality between CEO and the chairman. Yes, we have this, we have that, we have this, we have that. But again, 2-3 years after that, that particular company goes into PN17. PN17 is practice note 17, which there's something wrong with the companies. Yeah, so we have to do that time to time to support government and to safeguard public money.
Oh, okay. And this is the last question, I think. Related to the gender, is it also there is a change in the structure of the company in Malay? In your research to do the, for example, a board director changing, or maybe some
That's
other
very
result
nice.
will.
That's
Okay.
very nice.
What about that?
Yeah, that's trying to show that we women, well, this is not a feminist statement, yeah, Dr. Rizal. This is just to ensure that please do not be skeptical about how ladies look after the money, yeah. But females, only 5% of the board that contains female directors involved with the misconduct of the financial preparation. That is according to the latest 2016 publication paper by Omar Said, and just now I highlight the papers, right? So that's enough to say that actually ladies, they are more calculative, they are more conservative, yeah. Ladies, female on board, they are more conservative. So this helps actually. So, you know, to have more female on boards are actually another strength of monitoring. Believe me, test that.
I think Ibu Shanti, what is the Indonesian situations in terms of female composition of the board?
Yeah, the research is also the same, I think, with Ibu Nur Balkish, but I believe this is, the Rizal, I think, Minister of State-owned company start catching the issue of the gender also based on the research right now.
But so far, the minister is still a male, right?
Yeah, correct.
I think gender study is a good research area in tax as well, yeah, because I found that female taxpayer are more compliant than male.
See?
Yeah, and I know why, because male taxpayer have to be non-compliant to fulfill the females demands. Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say that males are cunning, yeah? No.
So I think this is a good area of research, yeah? Not only
right.
in corporate governance, in board of directors, yeah. I think gender studies can be explored as well as in tax compliance, yeah, and so forth. Okay, it is a good area of research actually. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rizal Palil and Dr. Balkish Zakaria, thank you very much for the comprehensive explanation. We have several points, but this is the important thing to be noticed. The first is, it is needed to extend our understanding of corporate governance issues beyond economics and also financial perspective to embrace strategy and knowledge dimension as well as a contextual issue. And the second is research on corporate government must explore the pattern variation of corporate government in terms of diverse configuration of factor and attempt to understand effectiveness in terms of alignment of organization with more contextualized view of organizational environment and life cycle, of course. And related to tech, this is a really multidisciplinary science. There are several areas that particularly as a trend topic in taxation research by now, including economics approach, behavioral studies, effective tax rate, Islamic perspective, and other religion. And it is also note that the green taxes as the current issue of government policy around the world as an interesting topic to be explored more. And then research collaboration between academics, researcher, and government, of course, must be improved to support improvement of corporate government and tax research, both in quantity and quality. Thus, we can expect that our research result will contribute to assisting the authority to determine the policy. Okay, I would like to say thanks again for our amazing speakers, Dr. Balkish Zakaria and Dr. Rizal Palil. Thank you for your sharing your valuable insight with us. We hope that with this event can tightening the relationship between our university. And also a big thank you to all participants. I personally asking for apology if there's some inconvenience during this session. And now I would like to give the time and Zoom back to Audrey. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you, Ibu Santi. Thank you juga Dr. Balkish. Nice presentations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Santi Novita, for leading our webinar session today. And I would like to say thank you to Professor Dr. Mohd Palil and Professor Dr. Balkish Zakaria for the amazing lecture today. It's a success to make me more interested in research trends in taxation and corporate governance. Ladies and gentlemen, before we end the second webinar series, it's not going to be complete without taking pictures together. So I would like to ask all of you to turn on your camera. Okay, let's wait for a minute. And the crew may take the pictures on the count of 3. Let me help you to count. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I also want to kindly remind all of the audience to fill in the feedback page and attendance form that already given by our crew so that we can do better in our next event. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we have come to the end of the second webinar series. I would like to apologize for any misspelling and errors made, and thank you for your attention. We are dearly hoping to see you again on our next event. Stay healthy and stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you
Airlangga
so much.
University. Thank you, the organizer.
Yeah,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Permit me to leave this meeting. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Okay.